Bom dia, Portugal!
In Portugal, there's a huge show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show at GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.
All up. Oh, hold on a minute. Let me just get that out of the way. That's an odd thing, isn't it? If you're doing a double take at that meme on the screen at the moment, I wouldn't blame you. We'll come back to that. How are you this morning? Hola, bon dia, alegria. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show live stream and podcast. Yeah, how you doing? Tudo bem? Como estás? Do let me know in the chat this morning how you're doing. A nice crispy one here. Crisp and brisk this morning. I was out with the dogs. It's pretty fresh. It's really bright and blue, which is lovely. It's 12 degrees, however, out there. Freezing here in Portugal. 12 degrees. Still very, very nice, very fresh. And nice to be out with the dogs, with the hounds this morning. Yeah, do let me know how you're doing in the chat. Wise Men of the Gumpocalypse open mic. Yes, it was. I was singing. Thank you for that warning. I thought I would start a little bit early and sing this morning. Such is the joy in my heart today that I shared with you. Sorry if it's had an adverse effect or reaction on you. Just how bad was that singing? Coach Turner in, T-Duck, and James and John's just popped in as well. As you rather not. How are you doing on this happy hump day, Wednesday? Ask anything about Portugal. We'll have the doc with us at 9. And he may well be responding to that political interview I did a little while ago, 2021, in fact. You remember, I spoke to a chap, Miguel Silva, who taught us about Portuguese politics and then declared himself to be a Chega supporter. And I then, the atmosphere changed a little bit with all my prejudices and preconceptions about Chega. And I actually, listening back to it, I actually asked him the question, what's a smart guy like you doing in Chega? Considering all that I'd heard and the opinions that I'd formed. And he gave a very good answer. It was good chatting to him. And we left the interview with me asking him if he knew of a good left-leaning analyst. And I mean, for goodness sake, we have enough left-leaning analysis, don't we, from the doc who'll be with us at 9. So I think we're fairly balanced here. But if you've seen a political speaker in Portugal who you think we should get on the show without souring the atmosphere too much, it's a fine balance, isn't it? It's being aware of what's going on without getting too emotional or awkward about it or getting bent out of shape. I think that's the phrase, isn't it, that people use. But do let me know, Carl at goodmorningportugal.com. Check out the latest Portugal news and information at learnaboutportugal.com. If you would like to contribute a news item or an opinion about something in the news that's going on this Humpy News Day. Let's not get the hump. All sorts of hump-related comments I could be making, but I won't. If you have a news item, Portugal news or information that you would like to share, bring to people's attention here, we can talk about it this morning with Jacqui Acevedo, of course, from Expats Portugal, who'll be here around 9:15. The doc from 9, and if his busy schedule allows, we're hoping to squeeze Bobby O'Reilly in this morning as well. It feels like we haven't seen him for ages. Okay, let's see what's going on in the chat before we go to look at that video that we tried to play yesterday. It looked like there was a sandstorm. It was filmed at the beach, and it looked like there was lots of sand blowing around. It was actually a low-res video, and we've got a much better version of it now. Maybe a version so good it's going to break my computer. We shall see in a few minutes after we've said hello to Coach Turner. Bon dia todos. It seems the sun is trying to break through here in Hertfordshire. Now, to the American eye, that does look like Hertfordshire, doesn't it? It's known as Hertfordshire, so hopefully we won't have a wet coffee walk. How is the weather with you? Yeah, I've given you my weather report this morning. 12 degrees outside, 17. 17. I thought I said 15 a couple of minutes ago. 17 in the studio, 12 degrees, the weather probe hanging outside in the back passage. telling us it's a little chillier than usual. Good morning, Coach. It's cold in Lisbon, but sunny. Answering your question there about the weather in the capital here. And quick off the mark, T-Duck this morning with his coachy quip. If you don't take a selfie at the gym, were you really there? Good question. I mean, it applies to any life situation, really, doesn't it? I selfie, therefore I am, as Descartes might have said if he was alive in this age. God's God tip of the day then, diabetes is a major problem in Western societies. Exercise can help sufferers of both type 1 and type 2 in a surprising way. Exercise can heighten the body's sensitivity to insulin, around which, of course, the condition diabetes revolves. Bon dia Gumpers from James, just jumping in there while Coach Turner and T-Duck are having a chat about diabetes. Feliz carta todos from James, the mindful slug, who reminds us to breathe. Type 2 diabetes can be cured in 12 days with diet, says T-Duck, interspersing Coach Turner's comments this morning with a few opinions of his own there. This means less needs to be produced and blood glucose levels are more stable. And that's if you exercise more in relation to type 1 and type 2 diabetes here, as Coach Turner is telling us about. Of course, weight reduction also helps. And is there a health condition where putting on weight helps? I guess, yeah, malnutrition would be one of them, wouldn't it? Particularly with type 2. In pre-diabetic people, exercise can even reverse it. Pre-diabetes, it's always fascinated me since my father first told me on one of his many trips to the doctor. He'd come back with a bag of drugs. Doctors found this wrong with me now. Apparently, I'm pre-diabetic, or I've got to take statins or blood thinning or whatever it was. And I remember him telling me about being pre-diabetic. I guess that means you're in a danger zone, doesn't it? And likely on the current trajectory to be bringing about type 2 diabetes. But it just sounds to me a little bit like marketing in some medical marketing in some. Anyway, let's not go down that particular avenue right now. Thank you, Coach Turner, for this. Let me just focus and concentrate. In pre-diabetic people, exercise can even reverse it. That's the type 2 diabetes. Any physical activity will help if it is regular and can be enjoyable. Yes, and if it's not enjoyable, it probably won't be regular, right? The benefits are really worth the effort. Google this. It's a Google this, everybody, from T-Duck. Type 2 diabetes is easy to cure with our 12-day McDougall program. McDougall, known in the United States perhaps then for helping with type 2 diabetes. McDougall is now a great big cake manufacturer or flour creator. Flour as in Flour in the UK. McDougall, yeah, that name's synonymous with the cake industry, I think. Quite the way to get the type 2 diabetes. Google this then, the type 2 diabetes easy to cure with 12-day McDougall program. I think T-Duck, you know Dr. McDougall, don't you? Deep thoughts. The day will come when the man at the telephone will be able to see the distant person to whom he is speaking. Alexander Graham Bell again today. Bell's mother and wife were both deaf. This profoundly influenced Bell's life's work. Very interesting. Didn't know that about Alexander Graham Bell. And I wonder what sort of reception he got. Would he have been an Elon Musk in his own time, saying crazy things like, you know what? One day you'll be able to see the other person at the end of this newfangled tin can thing and a bit of string that I'm holding up to my ear. Thank you very much, T-Duck, for that. And the dad jokes. Very good. Starring them up for later on today. Is it the dad jokes possibly that are keeping Bobby O'Reilly away? He thinks he doesn't like them, but you always see that wry smile on his face, don't you, when we share the dad jokes? I'm sure the doc will enjoy those. Type 2 diabetes is caused by the rich Western diet. Rich, not in a good way. Medication is not required and is usually inadvisable. Type 2 diabetes, but I guess that's part of the Western lifestyle, isn't it? Is to indulge oneself and to very cleverly create a pharmaceutical solution to the problems that have been caused. That in many ways symbolizes, does it not, sums up some aspects of Western civilization and how we roll in this part of the world, in this experience of life. Type 2 diabetes can be cured by correcting the malnutrition with a plant food-based diet and exercise, says T-Duck. I've personally seen it happen to many people. Dr. John McDougall is my doctor and also a friend. Thank you very much. Good day, y'all. From João de Nort, who is telling us that tomorrow is Dia de Ação de Graças, Dia dos Amigos de Familia, and the Comida. Well, that sounds like a great day, doesn't it? Of friends, family, and food. My favorite F's, basically. And then, of course, oh, I see. Right. Okay. That's Thanksgiving translated into Portuguese. I thought you got me there, João de Nort. I thought we were talking about a specific Portuguese festa there, or feiria. And of course, it's Thanksgiving tomorrow. Now, I've got a Thanksgiving bingo card here that came to my attention on social media. And some of these things sound quite good fun on, what's that? A taco. Is that right? Is that traditional Thanksgiving food? Free space in the middle. There's an uncle snoring while watching football. There's a drunk aunt, a half-assed prayer. Something gets burned in the oven. What fun. Look at this. A backyard football injury. Who's going to be doing these tomorrow then? Too many green bean casseroles and passive-aggressive comments. It's got everything, isn't it? All of life is there. A whiny vegan cousin as well. Someone smoking, bit of racism. Wow, who knew? It would be such fun. Food poisoning, forced conversation, and making up something you're thankful for. I'm sure it's a lot more fun than that naughty portrayal there of Thanksgiving. This was the meme that was on earlier on this morning. Merged Portugal and Spain did Earth updates. And the Iberian Peninsula, although Gibraltar's not included in this, we could play with that as well, couldn't we? And if you merge Portugal and Spain, you end up with a single country called Spain. So I would rather not, if you don't mind. Other memes that got missed recently. I like this one a lot. James, did you send this one in? Did you know I have 2 half sisters? Were your parents previously married? No, they were just terrible magicians. I like that a lot. And I have to say, a few Christmassy things coming in, including this Christmas market that's between San Martino de Porto and Caldas. Homemade crafts. Let me just turn the ticker tape off for a moment so you can see everything there. The Manjar do Tornarda. So yeah, on the outskirts of Caldas de Rainha. Homemade crafts, Christmas gifts, jewelry, candles. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas markets for sure. Christmas cakes, mince pies, ceramics, artwork, lamps. We know what ceramics means in Caldas de Rainha. Chutneys, jams, a plants table, and a dress swap. Oh, I'm definitely going in that case. Party frocks are plenty there. Christmas market, Thursday, the 30th of November. And you know it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas here on the GMP when Bob Yonker sends or reminds us that he's got a Christmas album out, and we'll be playing some tracks from that. And our friend Benjamin Stubbs has also written a Christmas tune, which we'll be playing, but not until the 1st of December. Okay, I have my limits. I have been a lot more festive and interested in Christmas in recent times, and I think being in Portugal is something to do with that. And I still prefer to talk more about it and launch fully into the festive spirit on the 1st of December. I hope that doesn't make me too old-fashioned and too much of a Scrooge-like curmudgeon. Okay, that what looked like a sandstorm video yet on account of it being too low res has been corrected. As I said before, it might be so high res now that it could break this computer. Let's give it a go. Thank you to Gary Mills, who captured this and made it for us in Montegordo. For those of you who like your motorbikes, you'll enjoy this. Hey, is that frozen up for you as well? Or is it just me? I wonder if so. What's going on here? Oh, these are all extra things that you can see at Thanksgiving. Now, I think my streaming is. If someone could let me know, is that streaming? Not streaming at the moment. Yep, froze. Okay, we'll have to go back to the drawing board on that. Okay. Oh, Portugal and and Spain could be sports. That's true. Or porn. I see. Okay. Get a lot more visitors, wouldn't it? Clogged toilet. What's that? If you mix Portugal and Spain, no. That's it. That's one of the bingo, one of the bingo squares on Thanksgiving bingo. Sorry about that. I'll find a way of getting that video to you. I think if Gary will let us, we'll pop it up on our YouTube channel. So thanks, Raudanaut, for that. Tomorrow is Dia de Ação de Graças, Dia dos Amigos da Família e da Comida. Beautifully reframed in Portuguese there. That's the Thanksgiving for us in a Portuguese style there. Okay, let me just get rid of everything that's unnecessary from this screen right now. We'll have Jacqui joining us from Expats Portugal. What I would like to try and share on the screen with you is my continuing and developing a news section at learnaboutportugal.com. I'm really pleased with this, and I sent it out to the San Martino de Porto grapevine last night and got quite a lot of love back for it. So that's what you'll be seeing on the screen in just a moment. Here it is. There's our homepage of goodmorningportugal.com. If you click on the top left-hand button or image there, you'll go through to Portugal news and information. And look at this. This is just in a couple of days. The segment from yesterday's show, Trials and Tribulations of Running a Business in Portugal, Carl's Guide to the Portuguese Political System. That's my column from last week's Portugal Resident. Discover Coimbra, that's where our Discover Portugal weekend will be, of course, in December. And we pay our respects to Sara Tavares, a Portuguese singer of Cape Verdean origin, who passed away tragically at the age of 45. And I was listening to a lot of her music yesterday. What a wonderful contribution to the world of music and the world of joy and beauty. Thank you so much for your legacy, Sara Tavares. A lovely tune there, Coitas Bonitas, with a very cheerful video as well. So what a sad loss to music and to life here in Portugal and around the world for music lovers. We also talked to Jason yesterday about why we don't have good cider in Portugal. Turned out that was a little bit controversial because Frank says that, was it Pomar Bandar, is that the name of a Portuguese cider, is quite good, although a lot of them aren't. Apparently a lot of industrial ciders are alcohol with apple flavoring. They're not made in the traditional way, and I wonder if that's one of them that Frank was recommending. Of course, the sensational NHR plot twist video from last Friday, which I'm sure we'll talk about with Jacqui in just a moment. Expats everywhere, 12 best cities to live in Portugal, and if you click through on that link, favorite places and spaces in Portugal, we've got our own little poll of the best place to live in Portugal over at gmpvip.com. We spoke to Linda Keith. We looked at Makes You Fluent, which I think Jason and I were a little bit suspicious about their special offer when they were looking for 10 volunteers. But I don't know if anyone else has tried that and if they're getting good results. A webinar, which we'll also talk about with Jacqui in just a moment. Productivity rate in Portugal. Portugal celebrating the perfect Euro 2024 qualification campaign. And we've got a message from Frank to tell us about, to demystify what's going on with the Portuguese soccer, especially in relation to Euro 2024. And if you go to that page, goodmorningportugal.com, and you click through to Portugal News and Info, or just go straight to learnaboutportugal.com, you can listen to it like radio. Let's see what happens if I press this button here. Let's see what happens if I scroll down a little bit and I click on introducing the Portugal Professional Network. Is it coming?
Sabe aquelas playlists para adormecer? O som de riacho a correr, o leve...
You get adverts as well. You get adverts in Portuguese, which will help you to learn your Portuguese. Familia, not familia. Oh. Familia, that's it. Familia. Accents, Carl, accents, accented vowels are our friends. Let's take the Portugal news and information off the screen and add to the stage Jacqui from Expats Portugal. Here she is.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, yes, absolutely. I might even turn you down a little bit, Jacqui. How are you this morning?
I'm pretty good. How are you? Getting ready for Thanksgiving.
Well, I got my bingo card out for Thanksgiving, and apparently these are all the things you can look forward to at a Thanksgiving. A blocked toilet, too many green bean casseroles, a backyard football injury, a food fight at the kids' table. Is this what you Americans get up to at Thanksgiving? 2 family members who aren't talking to each other? What's all this about?
Well, let me just add, the great thing about turkey is I believe it has something called trifectin. Is that
tryptophan?
Tryptophan.
Yeah.
So it puts everybody to sleep so they don't kill each other.
Okay, so
And that's the beauty of the turkey.
instead of things hitting the fan, proverbially, the tryptophan will be hitting us if we're
Yes,
partaking
that's
of this
it.
tomorrow afternoon. Okay, all right. So there's a natural soporific involved, which can calm tempers and emotions at Thanksgiving time.
Yeah,
Good
that's,
to know. Have you got a celebration sorted out, Jacqui?
it's going to be a small one this year. Just me and my husband and possibly a friend. But of course, it may be small, but I'm making sweet potato pie and stuffing. And I actually made homemade sausage, which is extremely easy because they don't have the breakfast sausage here that I use back in the
Okay.
US.
I wonder. I need to ask you about homemade sausage. How did you do that? Are they kind of a loosely formed sausage, or are they actually in a skin? Did you buy skins?
No, because you have to break it up anyway for the
Oh, I see.
stuffing.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
but it came out pretty nice, and we're just going to go crazy. It's like the kind of day that you sit in your pajamas all day and eat.
Well, some people here do that every day.
It sounds great. I can't wait, actually.
There are people now looking at the screen going, huh? Pajamas, sitting around all day eating. Yeah, that's my life here in Portugal.
That
Happy
is a great
Thanksgiving
life.
to you. Let me, and of course we'll be, we can say that to everybody tomorrow night on the webinar, can't we? Happy Thanksgiving.
I'm not going to be on the webinar because it's Thanksgiving
Because it's
tomorrow.
I wonder, will it just be me then and Jerry sat there?
Actually, Jerry's not going to be there. He's in Germany.
What? All right, okay. So just me then and Astrid sat there.
You and Astrid and Sarah.
Sarah from Spartan Effects, of course, talking about moving currency over and getting the latest rates with all this turbulence in the world. We'll be finding out what's going on with the various currencies, principally the dollar, of course, and the euro and the GBP pound. But other currencies are available. And then the Dream Team session, the ever popular Dream Team session. And it's a perfect excuse, actually, isn't it? For any Americans who don't like Thanksgiving, they can say, can't they, at 7:30, I have to go and watch a very important video now, webinar, because my future life in Portugal depends on it. So you're very welcome. If you need us as an excuse tomorrow night to get away at 7:30 from any Thanksgiving responsibilities, you can do that. And at 9 o'clock for the Dream Team session. Now, the big video of the week, turns out, is the NHR one that we made on Friday afternoon.
Your stars. Your
3,000 hits over the weekend, I think it is. Maybe even more now.
I think what you did so beautifully there is, Carl, I was really impressed on your questions and how it was laid out.
Okay.
So that anybody could, you made it clear, anyone could understand what you were saying. I actually sent it. I mean, of course, it's on our website if you want to access it, but I sent it individually to people. And everybody really appreciated it because, you're trying to get this information from all these different sources, and you kind of synthesized it in a way that made sense.
Oh, good. I'd like to take the credit for that.
You should. You should.
It was Duarte and Carolina who put together a simple presentation. And if you're thinking, I don't have 2 hours to sit through an NHR presentation, it was all done and dusted in about 20 minutes, wasn't it?
It was fast. I mean, it felt like less than 20 minutes. You guys were like hitting every high point and every question anyone could possibly have about it.
Very good. Okay, so that's over on Expats Portugal's YouTube channel. Look at this. You've got fan mail. Ben's here. Hi, Ben. Good to see you here. Love me some Jacqui. Staying up late in case to hear any news from her. So what do you got? He's putting you on the spot. Well, what other news have we got from EPHQ, Jacqui?
Well, one of the things we have coming up that is in on our webinars is we're going to be doing a comparative webinar about comparing not just costs, because costs like how much is diesel, transportation, taxes, the whole list of costs in the US, the UK, as opposed to Portugal, but also comparing lifestyles. Because what we found is most people, when they want to come to Portugal, especially Americans, they usually go for 3 lifestyles. It's urban, the urban and all the things, the urban experience. It's that coastal living, or it's a kind of a more upscale rural, close to some urban center.
Yep. Yep.
And just how much would that lifestyle cost you? Let's say Cascais versus Santa Monica, California.
Yes.
How much would that lifestyle cost a city like Seattle? In terms of population, what it has to offer is the closest to, let's say, Porto. What would
Very
that cost you?
Yeah,
So
that's
we're
good.
kind of going to really try to understand it from a lot of what is the true value of Portugal, because it goes beyond those kind of, national averages for gas, food. There's a truer value, and we're
Right.
going to try to get at that.
And it's really important, especially at the moment, to share that message. So excellent. Well done on that line of thought there, because with all this talk about the NHR and getting down to all the kind of financial sides of things, I'll let you into a little secret. I'm writing my column for Portugal Resident, and I've thought about using the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, as a guide or as a way of resetting people's perception about Portugal. And it's been a difficult few months, let's face it. Some people's confidence has been shaken a little bit, and some people are reviewing their plans, which you should do anyway, of course. I don't think anyone should move here blindly or blithely without being fully informed of what they're doing. But we have had quite the emphasis, haven't we, on the financial aspect, possibly forgetting about the 80%, and this is the point I think I'll be making, is that all of that financial, bureaucratic, admin type stuff, rendering unto Caesar, if you like, is only 20% of life here, if that. And I know it causes 80% of the stress you're likely to experience in that Pareto way. But it's a really good way of getting the perspective back, as is what your upcoming webinar, Comparing Lifestyle, because that's the important thing in the end. And it was Rahman, wasn't it, who said a couple of weeks ago, all of these things are the icing on the cake. The NHR, for example, it's the icing on the cake. If it doesn't happen for you, you still get the cake. And the cake is 80%, and the icing is 20% or less, isn't it? Right. So absolutely right, Jacqui. Let's focus a bit more, bring it back, and de-escalate, de-emotionalize all the current concerns, which, fair enough, people should have those concerns. These are changes that will affect people in a real way, but let's get them into perspective. So perhaps that's what's behind your new focus, on comparing lifestyles.
And for me, I've said this to many people I've consulted with. I grew up in urban areas. I grew up in New York City in not great neighborhoods. I grew up taking New York City subways. I've lived in Los Angeles, Boston. So I understand high crime rates and how to live with that level of stress on a daily basis that you're not even aware of because you grow up in it.
Yeah.
And I know what it feels like to let go of that stress.
Yes. Yeah.
And that for me is a huge, like letting your breath out moment.
Yep.
Because for the first time, when I moved here, it took me a while to let go of it. And when I go back to New York City to visit my mother, I have to remember how to access that again. And I don't
okay. So you've gone all innocent, have you? And like a country bumpkin going back to the city life.
I don't know. It's an awareness that you always have about your surroundings. And you kind of don't have to be on high alert anymore when you're here.
Yeah.
And that's an energy you get to use for something else.
Yeah.
You don't realize that it's an energy you're using.
Yes.
Just to protect yourself. And then you come here and you're like, wait, I don't have to use that energy. And it's a great relief.
I can use it elsewhere, can't I? I can reappropriate that defensiveness and sometimes aggressiveness into something a whole lot more enjoyable in life. So well said. Yes, absolutely. And that is, that's another 80% thing, isn't it? The quality of life is the 80% here. the joy of life that is afforded to you when you drop your guard and relax a little bit. And we definitely need to be saying more about this. So thank you, Jacqui, for being here. Before you go this morning, do you know what this is?
I have I'm trying to make it out. It looks like a tomato.
Yes, it's a good guess, but it's not exactly tomato. It is well, I'll reveal the mystery in a little while. If you stay watching behind the scenes, you'll discover what this is, and I will also be eating it. So there's a clue. It is related to the tomato, but it is not exactly a tomato. I think Andy, the doc, will know, who will be joining us in just a moment. Let's see if we've got some more fan mail for you and some comments in response to what you've been saying. Somebody sent a picture of their turkey that they'll be having this Thanksgiving as well tomorrow. Here it is. I've not seen this one before. Picked up the turkey for Thanksgiving. Right. That's probably... That could help or hinder, couldn't it? Thanksgiving.
Help. Only help.
Yeah, up to a point, right? We know how alcohol can stir things up among people. It sort of relaxes the nerves, doesn't it? But then the disinhibition can have other effects as well. Yes, the turkey, it's T-Duck. The turkey I picked up will definitely put you to sleep. No, not because of the tryptophan in there. We're having avocado toast with a friend tomorrow. Pushing the boat out then. Although, yes, I mean, avocados aren't cheap. That's for sure. Yes, in response to what you said earlier on about Thanksgiving, I was supposed to get out of my pajamas every day. Yes, James, you are. And do the Portuguese complain, wonders João de Norte, and whinge and make jokes about family gatherings, as we Americans seem to do? Brits, I think they probably do. Is your turkey still frozen then, T-Duck? If it hits you on the head, it will certainly put you to sleep. No, it was that bottle of Kentucky Turkey 101 there. Aviva's in. Hola, bon dia. I have to leave early for Portuguese lessons. Good luck. I wonder how Pete got on yesterday with his Portuguese exam. Must not be an average American, non-urban, non-coastal, and non-upscale. There's always an exception that proves the rule, right, Jacqui? Yeah, and that'll be João de Norte. I also need to leave early. Got to go stuff the turkey. Yeah, whatever. I am neutral about this. It all depends on the budget. Is that about Thanksgiving or the quality of life, I wonder? Why would anyone want to live with high crime? True. Some are stuck with it, aren't they? Or so it would appear. Yes, nobody would want to do that, and absolutely you can breathe again, as James reminds us to do when you move to Portugal, as Jacqui described. Yep, the rural American and virtually everywhere is definitely on the decline. I'm suburban born and raised, but definitely a coastal at heart. So I think you've touched on something rather useful there, and there will be people who want to tune in for that webinar, comparing the respective lifestyles of the different lifestyles in Portugal and comparing them to those in the US and UK. Even in Portugal, you should have situational awareness.
Absolutely.
Yes, you can turn it down a little bit though, can't you? I think
it's a matter of degree.
Yeah, it is a matter of degree. And no, it is not a persimmon. I tried the persimmon the other day, didn't I, with my Try Something Portuguese feature. Stay tuned, T-Duck, for that. Don't stuff your turkey just yet. And that's some good Kentucky bourbon right there. Jacqui, so I won't see you tomorrow, will I? So happy Thanksgiving to you. Is that the standard greeting? Happy Thanksgiving?
Yeah, that's it.
And may you be very grateful for the many wonderful things that there are to be grateful for in life. Have a great day tomorrow, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye for now. Expatsportugal.com. That's how you can register for the Spartan FX webinar tomorrow. Find out what's going on in the world of currency and for the dream team thereafter. Crime is rampant here in the States, with holiday shopping starting as well. So Ben, I think, keen to be over here in Portugal and enjoying the lifestyle that Jacqui was talking about. Let's find out what the doc thinks about that and my dangly fruit this morning. Hola, bon dia.
Hola, bon dia.
Well, you're out of your PJs for a change. What's going on? You've combed your hair as well, I think, or part of it.
Oh, yeah. You know, especially for you, Carl.
Oh, bless you. Thank you very much. I feel honoured. Did you notice that, Doc? Did you find yourself a little more comfortable here compared with the mean streets of Birmingham?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, it doesn't really compare with New York, but Birmingham is... It is an interesting place, especially the parts of Birmingham where I practiced and lived for part of the time.
Yeah.
High crime rate, high drugs, high guns. Many of my patients' lives were blighted by gang violence and drugs and the things that go with that. So yeah, very, very different coming here.
Yes.
And absolutely, you know, I wouldn't, you know, it's not perfect, nowhere is, and you know, but you can indeed tone down your situational awareness by something around 80 or 90%, I think.
Yes, well said. Yeah, and of course, in any big city, you need to keep your wits about you, don't you? Because there are all sorts of forces at work. In Lisbon, of course, you know, I've heard of people being mugged, and you know, things do happen, of course, that happen in any big city around the world. But yes, the point being here that you can turn your situational awareness down a tad or two and use those resources elsewhere for what I would say we're here for enjoying life, which is
Absolutely.
Portugal
I'm
is
just
such
going to turn my
an environment.
phone round so that
Whoa!
there we go. I was like, oh, I'm upside down. That's
No,
better.
that's all right. That was like being on an early episode of Doctor Who there, where the TARDIS
Yeah.
tipped to one side, and all they did was turn the camera around. When you were a doctor, did anyone come and say, "Can you help me with these, please, Doc"?
Oh, with their tamarillos.
Yes. Oh, very good. I think are
They're
they
very
also
nice.
they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
Tomatillo as well, possibly. But you called them Tamarillo, did you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
Well,
I might
Mrs.
be
M.
wrong. I think they might be slightly different, but they're very. I mean, they're certainly a lot closer than tamarillo and tomato. But yeah, they are. Yeah, I think that's tamarillo.
I think you're right. Mrs. M bought them because she thought she was buying tamarinds,
Ah,
which are
no.
very different, aren't they? And I've just cut it in half, and the aroma is it has that kind of slightly astringent. Is that the right description? It's really fresh smelling. Oh, and there's some tomatoiness,
Yeah.
but that's what it looks like inside, like a
Yeah.
passion fruit, right? And that's really what I think is going on here. This tamarillo, tomatillo, is like the love child of the passion fruit and the tomato, isn't
Tomato.
it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 So if you'll let me indulge a little bit further, Doc, I'm going to go in. I should have actually played the appropriate vingle to introduce us to this before we come back to you and ask you more about the crazy politics that have been going on. Let's just try something Portuguese for a moment. I'm going to go in. Here we are. Here's the
Very
whole
good.
fruit. Here's the whole fruit. There's half. There it is, halved in section. And it does look tomatoey, and also you can see those kind of passion fruit vibes going on there. Maybe a little bit pomegranate as well. So spoons going in away from the mixing desk because it's looking quite juicy as well. And I'm eating it in quite a dainty way. I was accused of being.
Yeah, I normally just stuff it in whole. But, you know.
Do you eat the skin as well?
Sorry?
Do you eat the skin as well? You like a bit of fibre and roughage?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all good roughage.
Well, I was told I was treating the persimmon or persimmon far too gently the other day, as I was gently spooning it out like a boiled egg. I didn't realize you could be quite rough with a persimmon, but I've done the same thing here. I'm going in like it's a boiled egg, and I'm going to try it now. And the aroma is really wonderful. And it's a lovely texture. It wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. A lot of kids wouldn't like that, I don't think, because it has got that.
That's great. More for the adults.
More for the grown-ups. But that is delicious. Definitely tomatoey, which helps you realize that the tomato is a fruit, but more fruity than an actual tomato. So thank you for your indulgence there. I recommend that to the house. I commend it to the house. The tomatillo, or whatever it's called, and hopefully we'll get a correct description of that and what you can ask for in a Portuguese market. Coach Turner, pleased to see you, Doc. And I
see you
thought
too.
tomatillos were green. Perhaps they are. There's some confusion around this particular thing. I know what I've just tasted. I don't know what it's called. A Carpe Diem's in. We are building in a small village and asked for a quote for 4 wired fire detectors. The quote we got back was for fire security system that would have secured Fort Knox. over £5,000. No, morning to you, Carpe Diem, with that report from the self-build front line. I think the piece that comes from not being constantly braced for potential danger is hugely understated. Yes, well said. Espiro, it's not an Espiro, is it? I don't think. Isn't the Espiro the persimmon? Isn't that the Portuguese for persimmon? We're going to have to expand on this, I think.
I'm sure. I think it's a tamarind, but and that's why Louisa probably thought she was buying a tamarind, because it's
exactly.
Spelling was so close.
Yeah, its name will, of course, be dependent on which language you're using. That is not helping, but it's a good excuse for me this morning for being so badly prepared. Personally, I'm a big fan of awareness, situational or otherwise, says James. Right. Politics. I've not seen you, Doc, since the recent upheavals in Portuguese politics. We were talking to Joel. Remember him from the Man Cave?
Yeah.
And Joel was really moaning about what was going on, particularly with the car tax rise, which I think has been knocked back anyway now. And he wasn't especially keen on what the socialists were getting up to. And someone put on the screen, "You need the Doc on. You need to speak to the Doc about this." And I did send you a message, but you were busy watching Netflix, blissfully unaware, I think, of what had been going on. Having had a chance to look at it, what do you make of the recent upheavals in Portuguese politics?
Oh, I mean,
that's a great start. Oh.
Look, what are we going to be faced with? We're going to be faced with in terms of the mainstream, we're going to be faced with the Socialist Party, who are far from socialist, and more sort of middle of the road social democrat. We're going to be faced with the more centrist social democratic and conservative alliances. And then we're going to be faced with, on the right, we're going to be faced, I'm afraid, with probably an increasingly popular Chega, which worries me a great deal. And on the left, we will have, of course, the Communists, the Greens, and my party, Bloco.
Right. And you put the Greens
The question really
would you generally
isn't...
have Greens as left, Doc, or is that...
Sorry?
Would you generally have the Greens as being on the left, or is that a peculiarly Portuguese thing?
Well, the way... I remember in the early 80s, when Noah was a lad, that the Greens were described as conservative, and that was because the mainstream socialist thought was tied up with industry, and Greens were tied up with conservatism with a small c. These days, the Greens are much more left-wing oriented. Many Green parties around the world have propped up left governments and made them stick to many of the left-wing policies they might otherwise have ditched, under pressure from the banking system, basically. And so yeah, the Greens I would describe on the left, and in Portugal, obviously they have been, and I think still are, an electoral pact with the Communist Party. So yes, definitely on the left. The question really is not what various lies are going to be told by the various parties, because one thing's guaranteed: there will be lies told by certainly the mainstream parties, and I might be slightly biased here. Certainly Chega will be telling a lot of lies. I suspect there will be very few lies told by the left, but I won't guarantee there'll be none. Well, it's all marketing, isn't it? And marketing is lies. So an election is marketing. The question isn't really what lies are told. The question is what the final outcome is. And I have a fear that we'll end up with no parties able to form a government without either the support of Chega, which really worries me, or the support of the left, which will be, from my point of view, very good, because when the socialist government, but one that relied on Blocko and the Communist Party to remain in power, they were rather better with their social policies than the current socialist majority government is. The other thing is, of course, is the question of corruption. Corruption is endemic in all politics. This is why Lenin demanded that when the workers had power, that they re-elect their leaders very frequently, and that they be subject to instant recall. Of course, Stalin did away with it straight away, because, of course, he was one of the most corrupt ever. But people talk about corruption as if it's something that everyone else does and not them. The British, in particular, are fantastic internationally at criticising various political systems and countries for being corrupt. But the British refined corruption, managed to find out ways of hiding it, and then taught it to everyone else. And the only way to get rid of corruption in politics is to have instant recall, total transparency, and frequent re-election.
Sorry, I don't know, what does instant recall mean?
Sorry, it means that it's like the recall votes that they introduced recently, actually, in the UK, where if you get enough signatures on a bit of paper, your MP can be subject to a by-election. Now that is a very small but important example of it. But it would really mean, if enough people said this lot are no bloody good, that there would be another election. And people say that would lead to chaos. Well, not as much chaos as corrupt politicians who eventually get discovered having undermined the economy, trashed workers' livelihoods, ruined the environment, etc., etc.
But it can be gamed, can't it? I mean, you can always mobilize enough people, presumably, to start a petition or recall.
Well, no, you can't always mobilize enough people if you set the threshold high enough. The point is that the threshold must be not so low that you can go down the pub, whip up a half a dozen people to sign a bit of paper and get an election. But at the same time, it's not so high that you would have to be able to take control of the press in order to make sure you manage to influence enough people to get support for a recall petition.
Okay, and then the politicians live in fear of that moment and behave accordingly. Would be
so they bloody should, yeah. Otherwise, they should live in fear of the barricades. But one or the other.
All right, steady on. Okay, we got Will. The other Thompson's joining us. It's nice to see more of you, Will. Recently, are we on a learning to avoid panic attacks type of geopolitical moment in history or something? I don't know what that means, Will. If you could further elaborate on your point there. Good to see you again this morning. Okay, fair enough. We were slipping into a little bit of political theory there, and I will bring you back to the pragmatics and practicalities, if I may, of Portuguese politics. We have an election then on the 10th of March of next year. It's going to be quite the year, isn't it, Doc? We've got the election that's been called after this. It seems to have gone really quiet to me. We've had a really quiet couple of days in Portuguese politics. And the result being we're going into 24 after the recent kerfuffle. We're going into 24 with an election on March the 10th and then 50th anniversary celebrations on the 25th of April, obviously, which a lot of, that's going to be part of, is it called the stump, the campaigning stump? And that's clearly, I'm guessing, and with some certainty, that political parties will be using the 50th anniversary of the Carnation Revolution upon which to trade and talk about the future, whilst looking back at the past 50 years and give their reasons why you should vote for them. What are you hoping for? What do you think will be best? Not for you personally necessarily, but what do you think will be best for the foreigners, for the immigrants coming into Portugal in terms of the stability they're looking for here in Portugal on March the 10th of next year?
I think the idea that you can come to a country and insulate yourself from instability is wrong. So it depends what you term stability, because there's the question of economic stability, there's a question of social stability, there's the question of the how foreigners are treated. So clearly there has been a pushback against the gentrification of parts of Lisbon and Porto as a result of foreign investment for residential properties. There has been a pushback against tax breaks for people coming into the country. There's been the question of whether or not that's going to lead to a decrease in migration and a drop in property prices. So all those factors, and those are very few of many more, that if I was given half an hour and a bit of paper, I could probably come up with a list of 30 or 40.
Sure.
Are factors that will influence stability. So I don't think the question really is one of what will be the best for stability, but I think there is a question of what is the best for social cohesion.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you look at the history of the last 50 years and the effect of the revolution in terms of improving people's living standards and their lifestyle, because it's not just about how much money's in your pocket, it's about how comfortable you are going and sitting in the local cafe and talking openly with your friends, rather than being afraid of whether or not someone's going to report you to the dictatorship's local police, which is how it was in the early 70s.
Yeah.
So the question about what's best for social cohesion and stability, with a very small s and with quotes around it, from my perspective, has to be a left-wing government, minority socialist, kept in line by Blocko and the communists. There is a reason that socialism is called socialism. It's because it has a tendency to favor the socialization, the ability for humans to be social rather than to be individualist. And so if you're talking about stability implies cooperation, whereas individualism implies competition.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for all those pro-competition people out there, but I think cooperation is much more sociable than competition.
I would offer or suggest a balance of the two might be quite useful, mightn't it? With so many things in life, the balance of the poles. But anyway, I'm sure people can speak for themselves about what you have just shared there, Doc. Let's have a look at some of the other headlines that are going on then to furnish this discussion a little bit further. We'll look at the Resident and the news. João de Nort sharing with us, democracy is the worst form of government, except for everything else. Apparently Churchill said that. Presuming you're not a massive fan of Winston Churchill, Doc. I have to go to court without a defence to show all experts couldn't learn T cells, therefore innocent, could do with a lawyer. If it fails, it's not good. A little help. Cheerio, possibly there. Where are the wise and eloquent advocates for centrists? Now, yes, but that's a good question. Why are you shaking your head, Doc?
Because centrism is the worst of both worlds, and you'll just get uncomfortable from the groove that gets worn in your backside from sitting on the fence.
Right, okay. A rather jaundiced view then. Yes, I think you've framed that, haven't you, as mediocrity of the middle rather than the beauty of balance. I mean, and it could be taken both ways, could it not?
I'll never agree with you on this, Carl.
Well, you see, that's
it's like
that is a difference between you and me, Andy.
Carl, Carl,
Why will you never agree with me? You don't know what
Carl,
I'm going to say
not
next.
on this. I won't. It's like you know, it's like a vegetarian and a non-vegetarian agreeing to
Walk into a
compromise
bar.
on what they eat. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you do? What do you do? What is the vegetarian going to eat meat? No.
No.
Is the non-vegetarian going to give up meat? No.
Well, you
Not
don't
without
know.
not without shifting position totally. If the
Exactly.
vegetarian eats a very small amount of meat, they become a meat eater. If the meat eater decides they're going to eat no meat, they become a vegetarian. There is no middle ground.
Yeah, no. Within those terms, I can see what you're saying there.
The
With
same
that.
is true in politics.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, leave that hanging there for a moment and take a look at the Portugal resident here. I'm trying to find the article which talked about the amount of social security that's been paid by foreigners, which is quite a good advert for foreigners coming in, but I can't see it here. Some of the other things that might have taken your fancy just recently on the Portugal resident front page here. Obviously, a shocker there. 28 arrested in mega operation against human trafficking in the
Yeah.
Alentejo. We know that that's beginning to happen here, which is a sad, very sad thing to see in this country. But that comes back, of course, doesn't it, to low-paid jobs and jobs getting done that otherwise people might not want to do. It's a kind of globalization effect, isn't it, in a country? Climate activists glue themselves to entrances of political parties' HQs, apparently, recently. And government and doctors, this might appeal to you as well, Doc. Government and doctors must reach a deal soon. The teachers, the doctors, other professionals are still at loggerheads, are they not, with the government? What do you foresee there?
They are, and they will continue to be as long as. So it's a bit like the same arguments in the UK. If you don't pay people enough, they're not going to stay. In Portugal, doctors are. I mean, they're not they're not low paid, but their relative pay compared to what they can earn around the world is very low. So what happens? Portuguese doctors move abroad. What then happens? We don't have enough doctors in Portugal. Surprise, surprise. It's not fucking, sorry, it's not rocket science.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Go on. It's not what? Say that again.
It's not rocket science, Carl.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, and when professionals see their pay being eroded, again, I don't know what the figures are in Portugal, but the junior doctors in the UK, the starting rate for whom is 15,000 a year, have seen their pay reduced by 35% in 10 years.
Yeah.
In terms of purchasing power. Now they're not the only ones, but all power to their elbow if they have the political will to force the government's hand. The same is true in Portugal. You can't turn around to the teachers and the doctors and any other professional group and say, "Oh, you should accept less money," because if that happens, then it'll just be a race to the bottom. Not just in terms of professionals' wages, but everyone's wages. Because if doctors accept less, then people will say, oh, well, in that case, bus drivers should accept less and cleaners should accept less.
Well, it doesn't look like any professional body or non-professional body, for that matter, is going to be taking the government to task because of the situation we have at the moment. The government are like, well, you know, whatever. They're basically giving up on the job, haven't they? They are caretaking at the moment until the election.
Pretty much.
Which is a long time for all these working people who have suffered long enough, you might argue. It's a long time before they might see any change, either metaphorically or literally in their pockets. Going back to centrism then, or else it's the avoidance of the worst of the extremes. I can eat meat. Picking up on your meat eater, your carnivore and vegetarian argument there, I can eat both meat and vegetables, therefore I am the middle ground by definition.
No. On one You're side, a meat eater because you will eat meat.
Okay, all right. Who doesn't like some good old polarity first thing in the morning? We tend to get it when the doc's here. Have and state your position, present your arguments, make a decision for appropriate action. That's very old-fashioned, isn't it? Like two sides of a political chamber voicing their arguments and then a vote upon it. That sounds like quite nice and old-fashioned, doesn't it, Doc?
Well, it's politics is not a new is not a new entity. It's been around for at least 2.5, 3,000 years, and it was always the same. It's not just, it's like saying gravity's old-fashioned. Yes, gravity's old-fashioned. It's been around a long time. It doesn't mean you can suddenly decide to get rid of it. You tend to fall off the earth.
I'm not
I mean,
suggesting we get rid of it. I'm suggesting we bring back balance and
well, yeah, well,
things
that was a left wing of the chamber and a right wing of the chamber at each other's throats. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I think that's what the nature of politics is. It means you don't end up with centrism. My argument, therefore, is proven.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let it be known. All right. Have your state your position then, Sir James. Present your arguments and make a decision for appropriate action. Your politics, says Will, science and social cohesion all depend on truth. When you thought it couldn't get more complicated and difficult, Will has to bring in the idea of the truth here. You don't have that. Fix that first, or everything keeps this confusion and social unraveling to continue. Yes, let's talk about the truth, but we've only got 30 minutes, so maybe not this morning. Do I have permission to discuss events that we shared in 2020, the warnings I gave unheeded by all? Yes, of course, in court. I mean, yes, I can't stop you, Will. If a vegan, that's your democratic and free right. If a vegan eats meat, they are no longer vegan. Okay, if I eat vegetables, I am certainly still a meat eater too.
Precisely.
Okay, sounds like a bit of poetry there as well. Haiku. I'm 95% vegetarian. That's middle ground.
No, because if you still eat meat, you're a meat eater.
All right. Thank God Bobby O'Reilly's here. Let's give him a nice big round of applause. No, that's not the applause. That's the bleep button, which I might need a little
Hi,
bit.
Bobby.
Morning.
Morning, Bobby. Oh, save us, Bobby. We've just gone down a very awkward political cul-de-sac here with some really awkward and difficult vegetarian meat-eating analogy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been enjoying the conversation there.
Have you? I haven't.
Oh, yeah, it's been heartwarming to say the least.
Well, I don't think we've spoken very much, have we, since the upheavals that I have been discussing with the doc here?
No.
How has it been for you in this last couple of weeks?
To be honest with you, I've been busy with everything else. Hadn't been focusing even what's been going on from the political side of it, because really there was not really going to be going on, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So
it was just waiting for the news of when the election was, and basically we're all in stalemate till then, you know. Yeah. So, but as foreigners here, we don't get much of a say really what we're going to be given. I always look at it a bit like the American politics as well. Whatever they vote over there, we have to deal with, even though we didn't get to vote with it, you know. Yeah. So it's the same here.
Yes, yeah, so true. And it's always interesting to have you both on the screen. The other night, Bobby, when we had Joel moaning about Portuguese politics, as it is his right to do, even you were saying we need to get the doc on to talk about this. Yeah. And people were in this sort of stereotypical polar way that is so much the fashion these days. We've got the left leaning, well, not just leaning. I mean, head into the left, the winds of the left wing doc, and the investor guy, business guy here, Bobby O'Reilly. And it would appear you shouldn't get on, but so often you're both here on the screen agreeing with each other, which I find so warm and fuzzy and lovely. And we'll see if that happens again this morning. So any other observations from you, Bobby, on what's been going on? What are investors who are thinking about Portugal feeling as a result of all of this? And what are you hoping for? Like Doc's told us what he's hoping for in March of next year. What are you hoping for from your point of view?
Well, I'd be the opposite, to be honest with you, Doc. I don't want a far left or a far right. I am centralist in the sense that I think you have to have a medium rather than an extreme on either side. I'm extremely against extremists, if you know what I mean. So,
yes.
How would you say? I think if it's too far left or too far right, it's you're going to have most of the people. You're only going to have one set happy. That's it. Simple. Yeah. And instead of trying to keep everyone sort of, if you like, somewhat happy. And I know this is a very sort of broad view of it, but we've seen it already. What happened when we had, as let's say, a leftist, socialist again government for the last couple of years. it has done some good, but also it's done a lot of bad. And it's, from my point of view, what the government should be doing is steadying up everything, steadying the ship for everybody who lives here, basically, in Portugal, whether we're foreigners or whether they're locals or whatever it is. But what I've seen is the deterioration of the housing market, salaries, etc., and so on and so forth. And unless they fix those kind of things and allow people to get work, for me, it's a domino effect. If you're killing one kind of, even take one of those programs, whatever they are, but the people that were working in those positions, or if a factory closes, the people who were working in those positions now can't go to the local coffee shop and buy the coffee, where the people working in those coffee shops now can't go to that clothes shop and buy clothes and so on. So there has to be a focus on jobs, a focus on inward investment, and basically it should trickle down the ladder, if you like. So, and I don't think that the last government has done that. And as what we've seen was, well, let's say the investigation remains to be seen, but from a broad view of it at the minute, when you look what's after happening with 10 or 11 or 12 ministers having to resign because of corruption, how socialist is it?
Yeah. Well, I think you made that point, didn't you, Doc?
Agreed.
It's not true socialism from your point of view, is it? It's a pretend.
Certainly not. And you know, I don't. Again, you see, I don't disagree with a lot of what Bobby just said. I disagree with the thing about trickle down, because we know, and in fact, the international financial institutions have accepted that trickle down economics does not work. And there have to be structural, even from a capitalist, pro-competition, pro-business approach, there have to be structural changes at the base in order to make sure that there is the available finances to sustain the market. So you know, people have to be able to afford to buy stuff, otherwise people can't sell stuff. You know, their houses, people have to be able to afford decent housing, but there has to be support for decent housing to be provided. Now, that to me, from my perspective, obviously, Bobby, is more socialist, at least social democrat, than right wing. So, you know, I find myself in agreement with a lot of what Bobby says. And as for corruption, no, there's nothing socialist about corruption, but there's nothing pro-competition about corruption either.
No.
There's been corruption in parties of every colour,
Sure.
since politics has been around.
Yeah. And where there are humans, I suspect there may well be corruption, and we need the mechanisms for dealing with it, which we could say seem to be in good order. I mean, this came as quite a surprise, didn't it, a couple of weeks ago? I think you mentioned this, Bobby, when we talked about it briefly. It's like, well, something's working, isn't it? You know, there was a huge investigation going on behind the scenes that nobody knew about, and suddenly it looked like the Prime Minister was being brought to account, or at least having to face some suspicions and allegations. And that did that not show Portugal? Whilst you could say, oh, you know, there's a lot of corruption there, you could also at the same time say, well, there's also machinery for bringing people to account. And it moved that morning, didn't it? And he resigned later on in the day. Yeah,
and that's what I said. I think like clarity that came out of that was that, okay, you might get away with it some of the time, but you won't get away with it all of the time, because Big Brother is watching them, if you know what I mean. Yes. And I think actually Doc said something earlier similar as well, is in that there has to be overview of everyone, like what you're talking about, what was happening in the UK. And I think that even has to happen at local level and local government level, is in that there has to be accountability for the programme. What are they, like when you say people are going to lie through their teeth, now, like every other politician, they're going to promise left, right and centre what they're going to do and so on and so forth, without knowing how they're going to do it. They just need people to say, vote for me for now. Yeah. And then when they get in, they're told what to do. Because as I said to you already, I believe the civil service drives everything inside, and they can't be fired. So the guy can lose his job that was elected, but the guy who's a civil servant inside the camera is not going to lose his job. So he's not going to be told what to do, except if it fits his hourly time that he has in his 50 days holidays, etc., and so on, or whatever he fits into it. Which for me is what drives me nuts. Yes. It's in the abuse that the civil service is, and it's sort of like a job for life, and now I can do what I like. It's a bit like when you pass your driving test. Now you can drive like you want. when you're learning how to drive, you drive straight, you look in your mirrors, you indicate, and so on. And as it is in Portugal, as we all know, people don't know what those blinking things are on the side of their car anyway. The drive is the one as soon as you pass your test. It's when you get into the civil service. And by the way, from what I've discovered, it's most of the people who got in there are not even in there because, I put it this way, they got in there because their parents were civil servants before, and so on. They were brought in, which is probably not dissimilar to what happened in Ireland and the UK as well. It was watching you, it was who you knew. And you were job for life and job for life. And that's what keeps voting in the people that are getting voted in as it is, because that's how the system is rolling. Now, fine. I would turn around and say, this is not where you and I probably disagree. For me, it needs to be run like a company. If they're incompetent or if they're not able to do their job, they shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't have the head of a finance department know nothing about finance and also servants underneath it. The same with the medical side of it. Someone who understands the needs of the doctors and the hospitals and someone should be in charge of that, who knows exactly what to need and know what the budget is and be able to fight for that budget, etc., and so on. But what you have is you have a lot of waste in the middle, and there's a lot of waste that is, I don't know. I just think we're not, and I mean the Portuguese themselves, from our tax money right now, we're not getting value for money through the civil service, and regardless who gets in, they're always going to be the issue. And that's where it needs to start. You need to have, I believe, openness, as in what the program of government is, and basically deliver. Show that to deliver. And if they don't deliver, the civil servants should be able to be managed and, how would you say,
accountable.
Accountable, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so on that basis, then, and that it's a really interesting point and theme for discussion, because on the one hand, we saw, didn't we, what could be called as Portugal's deep state responding to corruption allegations, and who were these people who'd been investigating and suddenly causing the government to be overturned? That's an interesting proposition.
Well,
and also, but hold on a minute, Alan, just 1 minute. And then which would be the best party? So two things. It's like what's going on behind the system we're seeing and what we're talking about here. On the one hand, who is the deep state in Portugal? It's quite an interesting conversation for us foreigners, learning about the system. And then which party would be most able to make the civil service, which, as Bobby rightly says, I think is huge and so influential and such a either freeing or blocking part of everyone's lives, which political party can make those people accountable, which is the best party to do that? So maybe you want to go first, Doc, Andy. What the Portuguese deep state, what did you make of that, and which party would make civil servants most accountable?
Right, okay. When you were talking just now, both of you, I was thinking back to a sitcom that we used to have in the UK called Yes Minister.
Yeah.
And you probably both remember it. And of course, the government, the minister would have all these great ideas, and the civil servant would be able to stop them all virtually, because that was the power they had, because they knew how government worked better than their political masters. And that's been true for a very long time, and is true certainly in the UK and in Portugal and probably in Ireland and probably every Western so-called democracy that we have.
Yeah.
In terms of deep state, so okay, the police and various other investigators are part of the state. They have a state function, and look, clearly they they carried out that function well in this regard. People will criticise them for taking a long time, but then before they came out openly and said people are under investigation, but you have to wait until you've got enough ammunition that the political masters can't just close down an investigation if it's declared at too early a stage. So I think they did a good job. In terms of which party would I trust to bring more openness and more sorry, the other before that, managerial revolution. Bobby, the managerial revolution has been the worst thing that's happened, certainly to public service and possibly to industry, I don't know, but certainly to public service. It meant that hospitals, instead of being run by doctors and nurses who knew the job and been there for a long time, were run by supermarket managers who knew absolutely bugger all about running a health service. And it's probably the same everywhere else. And we ended up with massive amounts of middle managers whose sole job was to push paper around and make good, hardworking professionals work harder and feel worse. And that decreased productivity massively. So that we have to find a way to reverse that. And I think reducing the working week and making the managers actually do something productive would be a better idea. In terms of which political party do I think would do that? I would say those on the left, the left wing of the Socialist Party and others, for two reasons. First of all, they would tend to be the ones supporting a reduction in the working week, which would mean that those doing unproductive jobs like TikToking and other marketing jobs and middle management would have to actually bloody do some proper work, like architecture or building or making people better, and that agreement that people can still earn a living wage for reduced working hours is something you're much more likely to get under a left-leaning government than you're under a right-leaning government.
Now, arguably, there is a sort of conspiracy of the civil service voting for the party that makes sure their jobs are safe. Is that possibly what's happening, Bobby? If the left-leaning parties are voted for or are in power?
It's how it's been explained to me, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't say that the person who explained to me was an expert by all, but it just seems to be the common sort of accepted that there's about 3 million that actually vote, 1 million of them which are civil servants, 1 million of them which need the social services that the socialist governments are providing and want to make sure that they're secured, and the other 1 million are related to them. So, and that was how it was put to be in a box. So, and this was after the fall of the last, let's say the resignation of the Prime Minister, that it'll make very little difference because the same party will get re-voted back in because of this situation. Now, I don't know is the answer, is my answer. I really don't know, but I think people, I don't see, when you ask which party out there, I don't see anyone that is capable of the kind of change that's required at the moment, and if ever, because it is a big change. It's a big change, and I think it nearly takes a revolution and another one. To bring about.
Now you're both agreeing again.
to bring about change, but for me, it is the inner circle of what's run Portugal since the 70s, which is just more of the same. Yeah. And you're going to keep getting more of the same until someone actually does something about it. And that's not going to happen with the political structures that you have at the minute. Because as I said to you before, and I said it again, the first job of a politician is to get elected. The second job is to stay there. And that's it, by any means. And as I said, they can turn around and tell the civil servants they might even have some great ideas. And lots of people can have great ideas. And I've said, I've come up with lots of great ideas myself because I'm full of them. But the thing is that it doesn't matter. because unless you can push through the wall of the civil service that basic just doesn't want or bothered or care to listen, first of all, or have the desire to actually implement something that's outside of their job description. It's a bit like the guy who got a job in the electrical company, and his job was to dig holes to put poles in. And then one day he's told to take something out of the back of a van. Well, no, that's not in my job description. I'm only here to dig holes. And it's a bit like that. And as I said to you, I've been in a few council offices, and a lot of them are very, very empty. And when you ask them, where is everybody? They said they're all working from home. So that for me, and it's accepted. It's just accepted, and it's, well, that's the way things are here. And that if you don't like it, go home. You know what I mean? So I don't have any confidence that it's going to change, to be honest. I think we're just going to get more of the same, until sometimes that you get the crash. And when you have a similar 2008 crash and everyone points their fingers at the politicians and the politicians start pointing their fingers at everybody else, we're all on a downward spiral, I think, from a political point of view, because of what's inherent and what's, if you like to call it, the deep state here, which is the civil service. And for me, that's
very interesting.
That's where lies the problems.
Yep, and you could argue, I mean, I talked about the Pareto principle earlier on, and that's going to be in my article this week for the Portugal Resident, but it's as though 20% of the people are affecting life for the other 80%. You know, they have 80% of the power, and they affect the majority's lives in a minority position. And it's not the minority we think it is. It's the kind of, it's a de facto ruling class behind the scenes, isn't it, of the institution, the state institutions, and the elections change the icing on that cake, but the cake stays very similar, it would appear.
I just want to make one, but you asked me earlier on what about how the investors looking at it and so on.
Yeah.
Right now, the types of investors, it's actually changed the type of investors. So there's different investors that are looking at Portugal for different reasons. And the main thing being opportunity, because they actually see the opportunity that this country is leaving itself in for the position of a foreign investor to buy property here, because they know of the situation to come and where it's going. So there's investors now looking at Portugal from a reason of opportunity, from a land grab opportunity. And I said this to you before, it was going to happen. It was going to happen. When you drove it down so far, the people who have money will come in and buy. And those who don't have money need to sell, and they need to sell to the guys who have the money to buy.
Yeah.
And they're starting to invest, and they're starting to invest heavy in that part of the market. So there is investors coming in, but it's money that will come in and go out again, eventually, as well. I agree with Doc to a point where the trickle down doesn't always work. It can work. It can work if it's how would you say, if it's taxed correctly and it's incentivized correctly. But you're right, it always trickles back up to the top. But if it trickles down and the right securities and the right systems are put in place for proper social security payments and taxation with regard to, and incentivizes for people to get proper salaries, because right now there is no incentive for people to get paid anymore, because for the employer it doesn't make sense. It makes more sense for them to employ outside. And if you even look at the brain drain, as I said before, the government is spending a fortune on educating people here in colleges and so on. And the first thing to do is to get on a plane and fly to a country where they believe they're going to be not just paid better, but appreciated more. They don't feel appreciated.
That's tragic. That's tragic.
It is, and it's a failure. That's where the failure is.
Yeah.
But the other people, how to say, foreigners, if you like, that are still moving here, are moving here for all of the other reasons that Portugal has to offer. It's why we're here. It's because of the lifestyle. It's because of it's such a beautiful place, the climate and everything else, and the people and all that kind of stuff. It's just a shame that there's a part of it at the very top of it. And I suppose that's the only part for me that needs to get fixed. If they can fix that part, which is not an easy job, to be honest, it would be a sort of the perfect place, the utopia, if you like. But it's just, I think it's destroying itself from inside.
Interesting, and there's an irony as well, isn't there? The Portuguese people who brain drained, as it were, the professionals who went abroad and were better paid and looked after better, may have come back if the NHR continued, because it was also applicable to them, wasn't it? It was their opportunity to come back to Portugal.
It must have been away for 5 years, yeah.
Yeah, right. If they'd been working away out of the country for 5 years, they could come back on the NHR. So that bridge got burnt for them as well. So hopefully something will be done about that. It's always good for us to defer to Portuguese Antonio F, who often can give us a great perspective, a Portuguese perspective. He's saying this morning, when in power, parties don't like to fire corrupt, inept ministers because it shows the public there is corruption, or they can't choose the best people and are afraid of losing votes. What they can't see is that people prefer to see a government admit its mistakes and correct them. That government might win some votes that way, but they know the opposition will make a storm out of that. Yeah, that looks like a pretty good analysis. Thank you both for being here, you gentlemen, this morning. Great discussion. Sorry I didn't get to all the comments on the screen. Mrs. M has done a cheeky plug for her show that's coming up at 10, the Barefoot Broadcast, the Heart-Centered Revolution. That sounds like good fun, doesn't it? Cultivating wisdom and intelligence through the 6 heart virtues. You probably both want to wrap up before the dad jokes on your various political points of view. Go on, Doc.
Carl, I just want to be totally abuse your airtime and make a plug for Leona's skincare. She's going to be at Penella Market on the 9th of December. She's
and then I thought he was going to come out
that.
with some pithy political insight. And he's just a capitalist. He's just a capitalist marketing arm of his wife's business.
No. It's a small home-based business, which is it's very different.
Did you want to add a pithy political insight as well? Yeah, and all the best with that, Leona. Her products are brilliant, and they'll be at Penella Market. Go on, Andy. Last word.
Pithy political insight. I think when we get a major developer like Bobby. Calling for revolution. I think my point is well made.
Bobby?
Yeah, well, I don't know how it will work out for me, but I actually just think, from my point of view, that I think everyone knows what my point of view is in that I don't think anything's going to change. I don't think it, regardless who gets in, we're still going to have that same kind of stalemate to work with. Yeah. And we'll see. Let's see. I'm hopeful, but I'm not hopeful.
And the adjustment, perhaps, is the personal one, isn't it? Is to see that, overall, in the end, this is still a great country to come to. Despite that, the 80-20 rule, 20% of it is this political nonsense that you will face to some degree wherever you live in the world, and it's manageable just about here. And the other 80% of our lives is absolutely wonderful in this country. Wherever you find yourself on the political spectrum, you're seeing two men here with very different ideas, but with big hearts and a lot of shared values, for sure. The Doc and Bobby here, different politically perhaps, but united and with me, in the sense that we love this country despite that. And I think we're all in agreement, aren't we? It's unlikely to change. It'll be a lot of heat, not much light. It's going to be an interesting year for sure, with an election on March the 10th and the 50th celebrations of the Carnation Revolution. And maybe, just maybe, that revolution that both Andy and Bobby are looking for could occur at some point, with that ringing in the ears of history. You thought you might escape the dad jokes, but no. I starred them up earlier on. This is the moment we really look forward to. And thank you for that comment, by the way, Squire of the Shires, saying a great discussion today. Absolutely agree with you. And thanks for all the comments that I wasn't able to address or voice directly. But thank you, everybody, for your comments. And João de Norte, I think, will make a good Prime Minister or President of Portugal one day, according to people in the community. You can make a waterbed more bouncy by using spring water. All right, barely a rough... Parenting more than one child is mostly screaming at one person to make another person stop screaming. Yeah, we've been there and done that. That's not a dad joke. That's just sad.
That's a fact of life.
That's just a sad fact of life. And finally, here's a deep thought for all of you mind readers out there. That was it. I know you might both use that one today. Thank you, Doc. Thanks, Bobby. Have a great day, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye for now. See ya.
See you guys.
dia, Portugal! In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.